the committee here has not been operating for any length of time, and not having anybody to kind of bounce anything off, or to kind of, have any like gutter rails, for lack of, all I can think of is bowling, and having, just in case, does concern me just a little bit, just because like you, Jen, you weren't familiar even with Robert's rules when we first began. And so, there are other people on the committee also that maybe aren't familiar with that, and just, basic committee rules and things like that. And how, what if somebody comes to the board and says, hey, I want to discuss X, Y, and Z, and somebody decides, oh, well, I think we should, talk about this, but that's a really intensely personal matter that should not be discussed and should, be quashed right away. I mean, I'm just a little bit concerned because we're just a fledgling committee. I think if we were 5 years into this, we might be ready to approach that, or maybe even 2 years into it. We might be able to approach it without having kind of just an advisor, somebody to kind of guide us just a tad bit. But I'm not saying that maybe you shouldn't be taking over the meeting agendas and those kinds of things, because I think that is your job as the chair, but that would kind of be my thought.
Yeah. And this wasn't to say that like we don't want any involvement, we just want more independence. The police advisory board for the city, by the way, just started like a few months before ours. They're brand new. They didn't have one before.
Sort of back up what Danielle said, at least for myself, I'm in agreement with that. This is my first committee. I've asked Corey a bazillion procedural questions. I think there have been some others. But, I heard two things in there. You started with, that we maybe haven't been doing enough, need to be a little bit more active. And I was just worried, I don't know if you would intend to serve on this committee, but if you feel like you need to do more for us, adding another committee. But aside from that, I just worry that maybe this is getting a little ahead of ourselves. The select board has told us nothing, that we're going to be cut down to quarterly, or our capacity is going to be reduced. So I don't know how much we need to stress that, oh, they're already axing our committee or cutting down our ability to do what we do, when we haven't been told that by the town of St. Albans yet. Sounds like something might have been brought up that indicated that, but we as a committee haven't been told that. So, to my eye, our role is to receive information, discuss it, if necessary, make a recommendation to the select board. And I say we do that on our schedule. And if we're told something otherwise, where we might have to be changing something, we'll discuss it and make a recommendation.
And it could be our recommendation that twice a year is necessary, not once a year.
We did discuss at a recent meeting a couple of months ago, the possibility that once the survey was complete, that we maybe reduce the frequency of meetings pending, an emergency circumstance, to maybe something like quarterly, unless, pressing business came up and we had to call a meeting, which there is a procedure for. So I don't know if that's what we want to do, what we need to do, but we have discussed that.
I mean, at this point, we just got our first data set, right? I mean, we've got the survey back. There wasn't anything in there that I don't think any of us were probably not expecting, I would think. It's usually quality of life type stuff that, affects people day in and day out. And that's usually their typical complaint. You're going to have usually a few people who have a bad interaction that, are going to be verbal about that. And then, we've just started to begin to see the calls for service and the amount of work that the sheriff's department is doing for us. And I mean, they just started with us. So, this is definitely all new. And this is first public committee I've been a part of. So just like you guys, I'm learning as well with something like this, minus the youth hockey people that I serve on, but that's a whole different animal.
Yeah, I think the concern that I heard from that there's two meetings. meetings kind of address this, was more sort of a reactionary thought about, well, if we were to add on another advisory board, that has nothing to do with our advisory board, that we would be stretching town employees and staff thin, and I can appreciate that from my professional point of view. But you know, I think the idea is that if we are allowed to, you know, maybe this other advisory board doesn't necessarily need an ongoing staff member or town member, and you know, or if Corey is not able to make, you know, every meeting be, you know, I think it's important for us, you know, starting off to meet once a month. You know, but if Corey, he's got a new daughter, isn't able to make that we are capable and able of running a meeting and advising and doing everything that we do. You know, if Corey's not able to make every single monthly meeting, or other town officials for that matter, just that, you know, are we able to? I asked the town, are we able to do that legally, based upon their rules of order? Are we allowed to do that? And they said yes. So that, you know, to me, it's just, you know, not taxing our town staff members too much in regard to our committee, or not sacrificing our committee down to quarterly when we believe it's essential for us, at least in this first year, as I think Danielle was kind of saying, to really meet regularly.
Yeah, I mean, just to sort of throw out like what I was envisioning was that, you know, they still Corey or Carrie have to, you know, by rule of the committee go over the agenda. So that I would come up with the agenda, we would have a discussion about what we were going to discuss, come up with any, you know, possible things that they saw that might be an issue, and then we would just hold the meeting whether Corey could be here or not. And that way it frees up Corey to be able to not work all the time, and be with his baby and do all of those things and not feel like he's worn out by these committees. But it also gives us a greater sense of, accomplishment's not the right word, interest in it. I don't know what word I'm
Thinking
trying
of
to
autonomy.
autonomy, but like it's our job, it's our committee, it's us, you know, like we just have this greater sense that it's ours. And I think I would like that perspective. In regards to the BEI committee, that was totally separate. I just brought it up because if you had been following any of the select board meetings, like that's how this all sort of like got brought up. I have no interest in starting the BEI committee. I have no interest in like heading a BEI committee. You know, I think one needs to exist. And I think that there are people in this town who are much better choices to be on it. I've got enough going on. I don't want it. I just think it needs to happen. So whether it's a committee or a consulting group, you know, I'm not super interested one way or the other. So that was just totally irrelevant. But I brought it up because that's how the whole topic came up, but not relevant to what we're discussing. So I definitely hear that like we don't need, you know, to be completely left on our own, that we do need some guardrails, we do need some assistance, and I'm definitely not implying that we should just, you know, go out and do anything we want whenever we want, but that we have that autonomy, so that we can actually, you know, come back to the select board or to Carrie and Corey and say, you know, this is what we're finding, this is what we're interested in doing, how do we make this happen, and whatever the case may be, so that they're more advisors, rather than, you know, me just sort of calling the meeting to order, ending the meeting, and end of story, and not really having much involvement from month to month in between, which is kind of how it's going now.
So I'll sorry, I don't know if that's just my
I'm sorry, Corey. I was just gonna say, I mean, we're still kind of learning our role too. Like, I mean, we don't know exactly what this is all gonna entail, right? Like, I mean, I completely understand what you're saying, and you know, you want this to be like, we own this. It's ownership, right? Like, we're taking a stake in our community and we want involvement. I completely understand that, but we're still trying to get a get a snapshot of what exactly is going on and what we're going to do with this and how we're going to do it. And I don't know, to make, seems like to make more would be probably not the right thing to do, because we want to be able to actually keep a hold of this and let it grow into its own, you know, whatever it does come be. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, I don't know.
No, I would second that as well. And I feel like, you know, I'm not sure that we would have gotten the survey kind of off the ground as quickly and as smoothly if we didn't have the assistance that we had, just because it was part of the website and, you know, just all of those things. I personally was super appreciative of the help and the assistance that Corey provided the committee. You know, I've been very appreciative of, you know, putting out the Zoom links and everything else and getting the TV channel there and everything that he's done. And I think that just those side things that are just part of like trying to pull everything together has just made it so that we didn't have to deal with kind of all that extraneous stuff. And so we could go ahead and talk about the things that were important to the committee. So I just think that those things have been, you know, instrumental in allowing us to kind of get to the meat of the issues that we really needed to discuss. So it's been very helpful.
I would chime in a little bit too. I think from an agenda perspective, I mean, Dr. Williamson, this is put this agenda together. I think the first few, I only did it just because, you know, we're again figuring out that kind of workflow, but you know, we have no problem with you guys setting the agenda. All the other boards, the agendas, or the boards set the agendas. The only input we give is sometimes they ask us to do something that can't be done in a week or two, or something that takes more time to get something together. The other piece we have to think about is, you know, who's going to be responsible for minutes, who's responsible. You know, right now we take all that on. So, you know, posting the agendas is fine, sending them to the messenger, although that's its own issue with the messenger running our warnings. You know, that's that. And then if there is any work that you guys want done, you need to figure out who's going to do the work. And as far as data goes, you guys effectively, I just got the race data yesterday. I got it yesterday. I'll look at my email. And I had meetings. I got it yesterday from the sheriff. And so at about 8:30 yesterday morning. So I was just trying to crunch and get it out to you guys as quick as I could today. In some capacity, that wasn't just pure raw data. So that's the work. I mean, fundamentally, it should be your committee and we should only be here as advisors. We don't want to drive the policy discussion as staff. We're here to support what you guys do. So whatever, you know, independence you want, or more, you know, lane that you want me to stay out of, just let me know. I think at some level though, I think it's appropriate to have at least one staff member here at meetings, whether it's Carrie or I, just to help answer questions you guys may have and you know, on those fronts, and then communicate those with the sheriff. You know, if the sheriff isn't always at these, you know, Carrie has a monthly sit down meeting with the sheriff one-on-one, so to address any of the concerns that you guys have with him as well.
Jay, I know you came in late, but did you get the gist of what we're talking about? Do you have anything to chime in?
Yeah, I apologize. We had a car accident. But I'm not sure what the topic discussion is, so I'm just kind of listening here.
Okay. I mean, the gist is essentially, you know, do we want more independence in the police advisory committee, or are we perfectly happy to have administration guide us more than just be there as advisors? So, you know, eventually we have to take the training wheels off and do it ourselves. Is now the right time? Is now just not the right time? Is never the right time? You know, those are, I guess, the questions that we're trying to answer.
Yeah, I guess I'm sorry. I guess I'm this way. you know, like you say, at some point we got to take the training wheels off. Corey's always there, or I assume somebody will always be there if we have questions. But it's a citizen committee to kind of have oversight over any issues that may arise with the sheriff's office. You know, I've got a few questions, you know, when it comes to the scheduling and things like that, to make sure that we're getting what we have been contracted for. I haven't had any input from any citizens saying that they're disgruntled with the way things are going. And like, I'm not sure if it was Ben or Dan said that somebody's always going to have an issue. You know, I was a cop for 35 years and I get it, you know, that you're not going to please everybody, but you know, I think for what we're doing, I think we can fly on our own fairly well with the group we got. We're you know, fairly intelligent, I think. And if we have a problem or a question, we've got people that we can ask those questions to. So it's up to whatever everybody else is comfortable with. I'm fine.
Jay, I don't know if you saw in your email, but the sheriff did provide scheduling data for the last couple
Yeah,
of months. So
I did
sent that out.
see that. I got back from Wyoming late yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to digest it fully, but I did see that. Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like we've got 4 essentially, you know, keeping somebody here at all times to kind of watch what we're doing, and 3, you know, for kind of being more on our own. Unless I misconstrued that, we don't need to take a vote on this. I mean, we're just kind of discussing things. We don't have to change anything right now. But some ideas to just roll around in your head, I guess, until our next meeting, presuming that we're going to continue going on with our monthly meetings. I know it was Brendan that brought up the quarterly, but then Jessica Frost brought up maybe like every other month or something like that. But if they end up going with the consultant, then maybe they'll leave us where we're at, or maybe they still want to cut down on the workload for Corey, regardless whether they have a BEI committee or not. So that remains to be seen. They haven't said anything officially because they haven't discussed it officially. So I just wanted to get the temperature on how everybody's feeling about all of that. So barring any other points that need to be made on that topic, anybody? No. All right. Next is website change. I didn't check this week, but I did check last week, and there still wasn't a contact form on the website, or like any way for the community to contact us. Oh, is it brand new? Of course it is.
Yeah, it was put up last week.
Okay.
Or late last week. The only issue, and this could be a policy recommendation from you. The current policy of the town is we don't let anybody make a complaint anonymously. That we won't investigate an anonymous complaint for anything. Whether you're complaining about your neighbor's dog or their trash ordinance, we make people put a name to it.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't always have to be the case. That's just the policy we have now. So that's why the first name and last name are required. Obviously, we need to be able to have contact information, but it has their name, email, phone number, issue, how preferred method of contact. And then that is information that we get notified of internally when anything comes through. And then there's the little robot piece.
Yeah.
So that's when you click the how do I send a question to the police advisory committee. This is what comes up now.
Excellent. That makes me super, super happy. So then going forward, is that something that we'll only get the information on like right before the next meeting? Or is that something that like as they come in, we'll be notified in some way? At least myself, if not the whole committee.
However you guys want to handle it. I mean, we haven't had a complaint yet, so.
Yeah, well, nobody knows it exists, so.
Right.
I think if it's going to be something that comes, it should come to all of us. I mean, it shouldn't go to just one specific person. I mean, we're all here, we're a group, we're working on this together. I think it should just go to everybody.
Yeah, I think whoever sends it will likely get an email from the town town official, Carrie or myself, saying thank you and give them the date of the next police advisory committee, and they'll discuss this at their next meeting. Because we really can't have you to discuss an issue via email because it becomes a public meeting issue. So if it's something that specifically wants to come to you or a question, we'll just put it on the agenda. I'll let you know, Jen, when the agenda's done. When you send the final copy of an agenda, hey, maybe we send and say, hey, we've got these questions that have come in, so please, schedule a time on the agenda to discuss it.
Here's a question. Like, say somebody emails in something like that and they've got an issue and they want to discuss it with us, but they still want to remain anonymous. Is it possible to go into like an executive session type meeting to discuss that within this group?
Yes.
Okay.
So the hard part with anything in the town is any email you send the town is by law public record. So it's hard, even if they send Carrie and I an email and say we want to remain anonymous, we won't disclose their name, publicly, and we can say that to you guys, and you can go to executive session to discuss the issue. But if they make a complaint against somebody and that person submits a request, from Carrie and I, we by law have to turn over the communication.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, say if someone has a concern with the police department and they want to talk to us about it, and they
Yes.
don't want their name brought, we can then bring that to the sheriff and discuss that with him.
Yeah, so executive session is allowed, and you guys are allowed to even, that's where you could exclude, myself and the sheriff, and just have a conversation amongst you about the issue, and then leave executive session. You can't make a motion or vote on anything in executive sessions.
Yeah.
But you are allowed to enter into executive discussion or executive session if you need to.
One thing to point out, and not that we have to do this, I don't necessarily want this to be the way, but the city's board, they have personal emails listed so that anybody in the city who wants to contact them as a committee member can contact them directly. Is there a way that we could do, I would like a more anonymous email if we ever went that road. Like, is there a way to make a police advisory board email that people could contact us without going through the town itself? Like, I know we're part of the town. Is that legally allowed for us to be like communicated with separately from the town?
So,
Yeah.
trying to think about the law. So like that PAB, they've got that email address. So I was just looking at the form, the PAB@StAlbansDT.com. We certainly could create a PAC@StAlbansTown.com, but again, that's to public records requests. And if you were to create an email, it's why people often will create separate than their personal emails for their public work. That those things can become discoverable in like your own personal email. Like, we don't discuss business, but someone could FOIA or file a request for all communications you've had with me about the police advisory committee, and they're and you technically have to do a search through your Google, whatever
Right.
your email accounts, and
Yeah, because somebody could FOIA all of that.
provide it.
Right.
So if you
Okay.
create a separate one, it's still FOIA-able, or it's not FOIA because that's a federal thing in Vermont. It's the Public Records Act, but
Same idea.
same difference.
So,
it's
but why
something-
would we want to have personal emails if we had an email for the committee? We should not be having people reach out to us directly.
So that's specifically why they wanted to do it. They wanted people to be able to access them without involvement from the city. And the city allowed them to do it that way. So again, I have too many emails coming in. I don't necessarily want that, but I could see the reasoning behind it. I just don't know the legalities of it.
Yeah, I'll talk to Carrie about setting up a PAC@StAlbansTown.com. I mean, I think the one thing is we'll have to select one staff member who will be responsible for checking it along with the committee, or at least having access to it to make sure you're not inappropriately using it. But it doesn't have to be Carrie or I. It could be our executive assistant who just checks it, make sure that you guys check. It's kind of like our Facebook messages. There's like 4 of us that check the Facebook messages, and even on weekends, and try to respond if we can.
I just I want to make sure, Corey, I'm understanding this. We're talking about one email that's for the whole committee. Jen, you were talking about having each member have a separate email?
No, I was just mentioning that the way the city does it is that they have their personal emails listed on the website, so that if people wanted to reach out to them individually.
That's what I
they
thought you
would
were
do that.
talking about. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good idea at all. And I thought you were
I don't want people to
suggesting-
have my email.
Yeah, and I thought you were suggesting that the town develop an email for each one of us, which I don't really think is a great idea. I think it's a good idea that the committee has like one email where they can send an email to. I get that, I understand that, but to have like an email for individuals on this committee, I don't really think that that's a good idea. I don't think that people should try to be reaching out and having communication with individuals on the committee outside of like our group, because that's dangerous territory as well.
I guess I've got mixed feelings about that, Danielle, because your personal email is now discoverable just because you're on this committee. So if the town assigned us a personal, an email address aside from your personal one, then you don't have to worry about mixing the two. I mean, it's, I don't want anybody looking in my personal email about things that aren't related to this committee, but when they file a public information request, it opens a lot of doors. I mean, I think personally, I'm going to change my email address, set up a Google email address that Corey can use, and I can get all my town communications through that, and it doesn't mix with my other personal emails.
Jay, do you have one through the fire department?
I do.
I have several emails.
Actually,
Yeah, I've got a personal different email for the fire department. Yes. Not through the town.
I didn't know if the town assigned you because you help out a little more than the typical. So the hard part with this, and it's a policy change, it's not, it is not good. It's the select board's the only citizen board that's not employees that gets an emails, like individual emails. Other than that, employees are the only ones. That's just would be a change of practice for the town, not good or bad. I'm not saying either or. It's just, I think we try to consistently do what we do across all committees. So I think it's just a conversation of, do we want to change the policy and assign all committee members email, whether you're planning commission or DRB or whatnot, their own personal town email. I don't particularly care one way or the other. I don't really know what the pros and cons of, from our perspective at the town is on that, but it's something I can definitely, I know I checked in and was met with, we don't do that for anyone else, so why do it here? But I think if it's something we think about just doing across all groups. I also noticed some towns too might do like PAC member 1, PAC member 2, and so it just stays with the town. So you might not get like J Williamson at stalbanstown.com, but we just keep the same 7 emails. And so if your time on the committee leaves, we just reassign it to whoever gets appointed in your place, kind of for that time. So that could be a potential way to handle it.
And I think that one of the differences with this board, along with aside from many of the other boards, is the DRB board, or off the top of my head, I can't think what other boards the town has, Parks and Rec or whatever. The issues they deal with are going to be different than the issues that we deal with, and we all know the sensitivity of law enforcement and the community interaction, and can sometimes lead to some discussions and emails and things that people want to investigate for whatever reason, and from my experience in law enforcement anyway, and so I think we're not quite the same as all the other committees.
Yeah, my interest isn't in like necessarily getting like 7 different emails for the committee, but more on the lines of, is there a way for citizens to anonymously contact us so that it doesn't become records?
So
available, because my fear is, you know, I can't be the only person who've heard of these things, but like of police officers doing some really awful things. And if I were that person and I was assaulted by a police officer, I would not go to Sheriff Jean Langevin to talk about that. You know, I would want to go to some other independent committee. And I potentially foresee us as being that committee who they would go to, or that other people that they could go to, and know that they would have somebody who would listen and want to do something about it. And not that Sheriff Langevin wouldn't, if somebody went to him, but yeah, I mean, when you hear about police officers, you know, raping women or beating people up or whatever it is, like, those are the things that I think about. And I want people to have that ability to not necessarily feel like everything they're doing is being observed and watched and reported and recorded and all of those kind of things, that they can still tell us their concerns and have that safety of not necessarily anonymity, that we wouldn't know who they were, but that the town wouldn't necessarily know who they were. And I want to know if there's a way to make that happen.
I don't know. I can talk to Carrie and ask if we can ask our town attorney to look into that question. I don't know if we can silo information. I mean, the only things you guys can pull my pay stubs. I mean, they work for the town, you know, like realistically, like there's no secrets, you know what I mean? Like you know, it's hard. And then from I know when we handle like a zoning complaint, you know, and people get upset about it, they have to put their name to it, and it's awkward for them because they're, you know, complaining about their neighbor.
Yeah,
in a lot of
but
cases.
awkward and complaining about your neighbor versus like a police officer assaulting you is a totally
But if
different.
a police officer assaulting you is a crime and could go to this, you'd have to go to the state's attorney or a,
Yeah,
so you'd still, there's nothing this board would do about a crime that wouldn't have to the name wouldn't have to end up at the state's attorney's office to do an investigation. So that's
There's other avenues too. There's victim advocacy groups that folks can go to. They can hire an attorney can represent them. I mean, there's all sorts of other things. I mean, we're not the
oh, we wouldn't be the
end all,
end, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, the beginning, and saying like, this is happening, and you know, I want you guys to know about it so that you can be aware and make sure that this doesn't continue to happen. It isn't a, you know, deputy-wide sheriff's department issue. That was more my concern, not necessarily that, you know, we would be the lawyers in the situation.
I'll talk to Carrie about reaching out to our town attorney on some of that, but I think probably theoretically, my gut's telling me is that we would just have to put information on our website. If there are concerns, put resources like Dan just mentioned that people can go to seek those, because so it's the catch-22, right? People want transparency in government, right? Like full and honest and open transparency, but there are these times when is transparency for the greater good. And I don't know the legal precedent around that. Like if I got a FOIA request, I mean, we get them on occasion, you know, people want to see what their neighbor sent to the town and then have a lawyer, you know, FOIA that. And so it's not trying to roadblock. I think we need a legal opinion to tell us, are we able to silo that information? You know, I don't know the answer to that legally.
Okay.
I always I feel like we have to go to the side of transparency and open records, but that's definitely that's something we can ask for a brief on our town attorney on.
I would love that.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else about the contact form, email, anything anybody else has to say about all of that? So the contact form exists as it is, and then if we can do anything anonymous is a question for the lawyers. Public comment, but nobody is here. Other business.
I do have to bring up Sorry, are you guys getting the echo when I talk or is it just me?
What was
Okay.
that?
The echo playing out, but we are doing our budget season right now in the town, and some of the things that have held us back this year are having no budget. What we can spend more time on in the next meeting, it'll get late, we could buy time, but it might, are there anything that this committee is wanting us to start to budget in, put in the budget for next fiscal year? It's not a guarantee. It goes to the select board and they decide how much they want to fund, and then the voters ultimately decide if they pass the budget. But you guys have, what are your thoughts? Do you want to have me
I
put
think
some?
we should ask for some money for mailing out the survey. I know we're going to be doing a paper survey with town meeting day, but maybe mailing out the survey next fall, and asking for, supplies and postage for those things.
In lieu of mailing the survey, I would opt for money for a product other than Google, so that we have more options like SurveyMonkey, and also doing the texting, which I know cost a little bit of money, but is not nearly what it would cost to mail, is much more cost effective. And I think would reach a lot of people and might reach the millennials and might reach a pocket of individuals, citizens that might not otherwise be reached. Because mailing is super, super expensive. And I think we can reach a lot of individuals through the text, whether we send them a link and they go to the website and then just fill it out online, or whether they actually fill it out like from their phone. Those would be my personal choices.
So just ballpark figures here, not dialing this in. We have about 3,000 households in the community. Sending each one of them a letter would be about $1 plus or minus some per letter to by the time you print them, have them stuffed, and then postage is 54 cents all on its own, so it's only about 46 cents for the other materials. So you have that. So the ballpark $3,000. If you're to do that twice a year, that'd be 6,000. I think that would become an aggressive budget on top of some of the other pieces. I mean, so I don't know. Texting probably, once the data was bought, would probably have to be updated once a year, so what will make texting expensive the first time is buying the data, the cell phone numbers, for people who live in the town. And likely what would happen is we would take our voter list and we would go to a political firm and buy. They'd probably match about 60% of those, and some of them there'd be some error level. And we'd probably have to buy those for about $1 a piece or whatever they had. So that would be 5,000 voters. So if we got 3,000, again, maybe we could get cheaper than 3,000. The texting is cheaper. It's about 10 to 15 cents a text, but to buy that. So I think either way, there's a significant investment potentially there. Survey companies, what I looked at when I first did this, anywhere from $500 to $1,000. So I don't know. What my thought is on one mailing with town meeting days, we're pretty much moved that we're going to mail ballots for all elections at the town, that we potentially could. I don't know if I got to check with Secretary of State. Can we just put our survey in when we mail out the ballots already? We've already budgeted a cost for mailing there, and we already have envelopes. So we're only just sending, additional couple pieces of paper.
Or even, just a postcard with a website address, or go ahead and call us and ask us for a mailing if you need it. Not necessarily the full survey, but more of a here's where you go to do the survey.
I mean, even a postcard out to the town's about $1,200 to $1,500. Those shiny postcards you got about town hall last year, the stormwater utility, this year, those cost about $1,500 around to do. So
I don't
not
think we need anything that fancy.
well, even the first one we did with the stormwater utility was a small little just yellow one, and wasn't fancy, and that was about the cost is the, I mean, just the postage is so expensive now. So I mean, I mean, it's fine, ask the money, but that's, do you want me to ask for $1,500 or $3,000 or $6,000 on that? You know, that kind of, I think we can, I mean, there's a case to be made for all of it. It's just what level do you want to ask for? And do you feel comfortable asking for on that? And I think that's kind of the balance on the surveys. Do we do one within the town meeting day survey that pretty much is inexpensive to do, and then maybe the fall one, mail out a postcard as the reminder. I think that's just policy decisions we need to make, and you know, what do you want to ask for dollars on that front? How do you want to try to
Possible
do?
to, is it possible to hand stuff out like on, you know, when people are coming in to cast the ballots? I mean, instead of
Yep.
expenditures, just having somebody there handing it out. I mean,
Yep.
Are
So
we mailing though?
we do mail ballots, but people still can come in to a vote on election day. So we would still have a stack of questionnaires available for folks. And I think it'd be fine to have, you know, the committee, we have a table for the town, so I don't think it's an issue to have a committee member there to try to get people to talk people into taking this survey. But no, I yeah, we can hand them out, Dan, but we are,
just
I
a
think
thought.
last year about 70% of our ballots were returned by mail. I don't remember the exact number, but it was pretty low turnout on election day. The ballots were already back. I think we had over 1,000 ballots back of the 1,800 that were cast. My guts tell me 1,200 were back early, so about 2/3 of the ballots were cast before election day last time.
I think it makes a lot of sense if we are able to put it in with the mailed out. If we can put a postcard in there, that does make a lot of sense. If
Yeah,
we're
I
already
mean,
mailing
yeah. There's the other piece is potentially do. I mean, I know you don't always get positive responses. I think people be tainted, but like the city, they send out a update letter with like their water bills or their property taxes, but usually people are pretty mad when they get their property taxes, or in our case, the stormwater bills. So I don't know if that's hitting people in the right frame of mind when they get that that piece. You know, they don't ask surveys, they just send an update letter from the mayor. But usually that's when our call volumes tick up. We ask Anna to let us know when bills are going out, so we're prepared the next week or two afterwards. But I think stuffing them in ballots, if we can, makes sense to reduce costs. I mean, again, the city mailed theirs. I do know they mailed theirs. I got one at my parents' house, and my parents are obviously not responding because I took their survey so that I could share it with all of you, or at least I guess I can give it back now. But their survey was only 5 questions, and you know, ours is a little longer, so ours will probably be a couple pages, at least a front and back to do. But I think it makes sense. But then we just have to talk about, you know, tallying all that information and so on.
You don't have to make a decision about this tonight, or we do need to make a decision.
I think give me kind of where you want to go. I mean, I can kind of draw up a number. You don't have to necessarily come up with a number. But if we want to try to do a postcard in the fall and try to stick stuff in town meeting day, that's one number. If we want to try to just stick a mailing in with the ballots and then try to do a better survey product, that's a different budget number. I think just kind of giving me at least a guidance, we can, the select board's gonna push back on, not push back, but they're gonna look at budgets anyways, and it's shaping up to be a tough budget year. For the priorities they want to fund but not raise revenue. So it's that's always the ebb and flow of things. So do you want me to try to put in for a postcard or just a better software or a full-on mailing? I guess those would be the three options, right? Theoretically.
Does anybody else want to chime in and say something? No.
As a taxpayer, this option.
What was that, Jen?
Said as a taxpayer, I like the cheapest option.
Even as a committee member, I think, we should try to be conservative as possible.
I mean, it's one of those things, because we are new and it's iterative, the next process could be better than what we did with Google Forms. Google allowed us to at least get something going. We can try a better survey system. If that doesn't work, then go to the next most expensive option and kind of, I by no means think we're going to find our happy medium. I think it'll probably be our fifth survey by the time we're like, all right, we think we have this dialed in. It'll take a little while. So I can certainly look, put in $500 to $1,000 and say it's to buy a software for that purpose. And it may come in cheaper, so we may have other funds, that we can use to try to drum up some other pieces there. I'm hoping too, with like a new town hall and COVID dying down, people will come into town hall, so we can always put surveys out at the town clerk's office and stuff like that. Try to think of different ways to get people to do it but cheaper.
I mean, I'm okay with you just asking for a round number, and then we can, make do with whatever it is that round number is that we get, and just tell them that's, our intention is to get as much out of that money as possible, whether that means postcards and, nice electronic survey or whatever the case may be. But just asking for like a nice round 5,000, I think would be a good idea, because it sounds like everything would be around that much at least for 2 surveys a year. And if we spent all of it on, one half of the year and then just did another Google survey in the other half of the year, that's always an option. So.
So I'm here to request $5,000 for community survey outreach, if you will. You guys want to make a motion on that, vote on it?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you, Corey, because of the echo. I make a motion that we request $5,000.
Can I get a second? No, nobody's going to second that. Am I allowed to second things?
No, not the chairs. No.
Okay. Okay. Does somebody want to make a different motion?
I'm sorry, that sounds high to me. I thought when we first started talking that Corey suggested that, or not suggested, but advised maybe that 6 would be a really aggressive number in this year. If we're talking, about 1,000 for potentially new software, once we've made that initial purchase, we don't need to be approaching a 5,000 number, do we?
Theoretically not. So the other piece we're gonna, and I know we haven't paid anyone yet. We can actually do that at our next meeting. We just haven't had things to do, get everyone's W-2s. But we've got not everyone's getting paid, but we have to budget the small salary piece. So so that's 2,100. So we're already gonna ask for that. Yeah, I mean, I think a survey, I think $1,500 to $2,000 would cover a survey plus, kind of materials if we're going to print out, have something printed for an election time. I think that's manageable. But again, you can ask for 5 and only get 2, or you can ask for 2 and maybe they give you 1, and whatever they give us we'll work with. But I think
So 3,500 more realistic.
I'm asking, what do you guys want for the outreach? The 2,100 for the budget on salaries is whether you guys want or not. That's what we have to budget just for what they said they would pay you, so that they're not really gonna be able to touch that number. It's beyond that. What do we want to ask for?
Okay.
I think we could do it for, we could shoelace it for 1,000, I think, but I think 1,500 gives us room.
Okay.
Or
So
1,400 if you want the total ask to be 3,500 for the whole committee.
if I make a motion for 2,500, they'll probably give us less.
They're probably gonna give you less anyway. That's what they like to do.
Yeah.
So ask for more and we'll get less. We'll get what we
Alright.
actually need.
I make a motion for 3,000.
Can I get a second?
I second that.
Preston seconded. Any further discussion?
That leaves you with take the 2,100 in salaries, that leaves you with 900 to work with for surveys.
No, I think that's separate, right?
Yeah, separate. So we'd ask for 5,100 total.
Okay.
We could still use the minimum amount necessary to affect what we're trying to do. Like, just because we're being allotted that amount does not mean that that's what we're going to go with. Okay.
Right. And likely, you're probably going to get at least $100 shaved off, because they'll look at 5,100 and go, well, we'll do 5,000. That's just the way things work, right? Like, they'll be like, well, so, but yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. Motion passes. Okay, and then we just need to approve the minutes from October 13th. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all in favor of passing or approving the minutes from October 13th, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No. Okay, and I would like a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Dan?
I'll
and
second that.
Jay? All right. Then we are adjourned at 7:57.